Welcome to the Accidental Business Owner podcast, the show that lifts the lid on what it really takes to grow, scale and successfully exit your business without losing your sanity, soul or savings. Real stories, raw lessons, proven strategies. Let's dive into this week's episode. Hello and welcome to the Accidental Business Owner podcast. I'm Jay Allen, your host, and in this episode we're going to be talking about why you are still the problem. What do you mean, Jay? I'm the problem. How dare you make such assumptions? I'm doing okay. The business is okay. We're growing. Everything seems to be in the right direction. What do you mean I'm the problem? I want to take you back about 6 or 7 months ago when you were sat at your desk and the phone was continually ringing and the text messages or the WhatsApps these days were full and far between and coming in at a thick rate of knots. The emails were still mounting up. There was somebody tapping on your door every 5 or 10 minutes saying, "Have you just got 5 minutes? Can you just..." And you were exceptionally busy. Yeah, I remember those days. Yeah. Right. So, can you help me to understand as to what's changed since then? Well, and that's where the silence usually sits. And it's usually for far longer than is perhaps comfortable for either one of us. You see, I'm talking to the busy business owner, the one that is running a busyness as opposed to a business. The one that they've built a successful little empire where they've got things happening all the time, that they're in early and out late, that there's constant activity in the business. And yet the majority of that business is evolved around the business owner. Most of the decisions still require your sign-off. Most of the emails still require you to be able to give consideration, even if you're not the one that's pressing the button on send. Most of the inquiries and contracts and signings and client-facing work still in some way requires you, as opposed to the business doing the business regardless of your presence or involvement. Jay, that's just a pipe dream. Those type of things just don't exist. We see it on the movies, but in real life, you've got to be in it. You've got to be on it. You've got to roll up your sleeves and be ready to lead by example. Then all of those I'm not disagreeing with. During that transition from being the operator to the owner. But as the owner of a business, it needs to be able to operate completely and utterly diverse from your involvement within it. That the whole goal from moving from operator to owner is to fundamentally make yourself redundant. Redundant, Jay? What on earth are you talking about? I don't want to be redundant. I'm loving my job. And how's that playing out for you with regards to the relationship with your partner and your kids and your health and your friends and your hobbies and your interests and everything else that you've put on hold in order to grow this business? Well, they understand. But how long are they going to be understanding that the busyness is all self-generated? And within 12 weeks, we could completely switch it off. That you become surplus to requirements and the business can continue to go and grow and scale without the need for you to be there 24/7 and on a phone and on an email and checking it while you're on the beach and not being available for your kids' sports day and the likes. And all of that is possible in just 1 quarter if you were open to that transition, the transition from operators to owner. In My True North, we call it a taste of freedom. The ability to be able to see what it looks like once your business is operating without you being the linchpins to every single decision. And today I want to talk to you about exactly as to how easy that becomes once you are ready to accept that the business that you are currently in, you are the bottleneck within it, preventing it from being able to grow and scale and evolve beyond the control that you currently have over it. And today is that pivotal point where you say, how long are you going to continue to be in the busyness of business at the expense of not being able to scale your company? Because it simply takes a mindset shift, an acknowledgement that everything that you've done that's led you to where you are today has got you to where you are today. And that should be acknowledged and be excited about. You should be recognizing that all of the things, the sacrifices, the time, the effort, the blood, sweat and tears, all of that has got you to where you are today. Congratulations. I'm really thrilled for you. But if where you are today isn't complete utopia, isn't where the business is working completely autonomously from your involvement in it, that if you choose to come into work, you come in because it's something that you want to do, that you can pick something up and put it down and make a contribution, but not to the detriment of the business being growing and evolving if you choose not to do so. To have systems and processes and people in place that your job becomes coach and mentor to help and guide and support those new employees through their evolution and the company journey, to be able to create a career path for them rather than simply a job, by stepping out of owning the business and being the business owner and stepping into the role of how do I help develop this for the next generation? How do I allow this to be able to extend beyond me and my experience or my capability or my time frame or my mental capacity? And that comes down to a single decision. When are you going to make that decision? When are you going to ask that question? When is it time to step up and release everything that you've done that's led you to where you are today, so you can become everything that business now needs of you for what it's going to become in the next year, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years? Our signature program is called Living Your Legacy. And it's not about leaving something in a will to your kids. It's about being able to live in the moment and being able to demonstrate what success truly means. And it's not about a number and a bank balance. It's about being able to live life on your terms by being able to establish what do I need to do in my business that allows me to free myself up to do the things that are now relevant and necessary. And like I say, that shouldn't be signing off on overtime or agreeing a new contract or welcoming a new customer, although all of those things are incredibly important within the business. They're just no longer important for you to be the only one that's doing it. So very quickly, I wanted to share a story about a guy called Jean. Now, I thought when he first introduced himself that I saw it on an email, and I welcomed him onto the Zoom call and said, "Morning, John, how are you?" And he was very quick and specific to be able to advise that he was Belgique. And although it seems to be spelt similarly to our understanding of the word, he was very specific about introducing himself as the word Jean. So Jean is the client that we're going to talk about very briefly today. And when I first met him, he'd come to one of our presentations. I've been speaking to a small business group in Chester. He'd been in the audience and approached me afterwards, took a business card, and we swapped email addresses, and approached me afterwards via emails to say, some of the things that you spoke about earlier really, really resonated with me and my wife. Can we have a conversation? So we jumped onto a Zoom call about 6 or 7 months ago now in order to be able to discuss what it was about my presentation that had resonated with him and how best I could be of service. How can I help? And Jean explains to me that him and his wife had set their delicatessen business up about 22 years ago when they first moved here from Belgium. And that over the last 22 years, they've built an incredible little delicatessen business in Cheshire with a very enviable reputation and some great clients and doing some good numbers. They've got a small team working with them. They've won some corporate contracts where they're able to deliver their delicatessen into businesses for their large staff away days or staff training days and the likes. And things seem to be going relatively well. However, Jean and his wife quickly recognised from the things that I've been speaking about that day that he was 61 years old and doesn't have a retirement plan in place, that he hadn't given consideration as to what happens one day if, one, he doesn't want to run the business any longer, if it gets to a point in time where he no longer wants to be up at 5 a.m. and baking and preparing ingredients and up to his armpits in whatever else and dough and goo and flour and the likes. Okay, I'm simplifying things a little for the sake of this podcast, but as you can assume in a delicatessen, there's lots of moving parts and hot and ingredients to be given considerations to. And at 61, he might not want to be able to be doing that for the rest of his life. He might want to be able to go and spend some more time with his wife on a Sunday afternoon somewhere and sip a glass of wine in the French Riviera as opposed to having to worry about unlocking and the alarm codes and all the other stuff that goes off with running a successful business. So we ended up having a conversation, and as part of that conversation, rather than making any form of emotional decisions, we invite people to be able to complete a completely free assessment of their stickiness to the business. I call it a business freedom assessment. An ability to establish as to how reliant is the business on the business owner making some of those key decisions. How long would it be sustainable in the current format if the business owner just simply didn't turn up for work tomorrow morning, either through choice or through necessity? At 61 years old, we've got to be considerate of our health and how much longer we are able to be able to do the hours that Jean and his wife were still doing in the business 22 years later. So we completed our business freedom assessment, a simple, quick questionnaire to establish as to how stuck he is in the business. I call it your 5-star prison. You've created this lovely little business that you're in, but you're so trapped within it that it relies on you being there 24/7. And we completed the assessment, and I gave him his score, his freedom score. And he looked at me and smiled, and he said, "Do you know what? That's a little bit better than I first thought it was. I'm quite happy." Until I pointed out that the 54 that he'd scored isn't out of 100. It's out of 150. And at 54, on our criteria, he's just above critical to the business. We'd established that if Jean and his wife both weren't in the business, unexpectedly, other than, taking time out for a holiday where they'd planned and scheduled to be able to be away from the business, if he was unable to be in the business from tomorrow onwards, that the business would fall over and collapse in less than 2 weeks of him not being present. The requirement on him or his wife to be on site and logged in was less than 2 weeks before it was critical to the business. And that is after 22 years of operating and a small team of staff in the business and capable of doing some of the things that they were doing. And he was flabbergasted to learn that it wasn't out of 100, and he thought he'd scored, over half, that is actually just over the critical element in the business. Now, the good news is the fact that although this is a free assessment, we also provide some help and support in forms of a tailored report And therefore, during that call, I was able to recite to him some of the recommendations and suggestions of things that he could choose to put in place there and then to be able to free him up from some of the time. And I'm really pleased to share in today's podcast that the email I got back from Jean about 8 weeks after we'd had that call is we'd been able to free up about 12 hours a week for him and his wife from the current day-to-day operational necessity that they both provided. Now, collectively, that's 24 hours a week of free time that he's now got the abilities to be able to work on the business and creating some form of succession planning, as opposed to be in the business and up to his armpits in flour and the likes. And it's as simple as that. It's as simple as making a decision to say, how tied am I to this business? What are the things that I'm still doing that I didn't really ought to be doing any longer or don't want to be doing in the future? And what are the things that I could do now that I could implement in the next 8 or 9 weeks to be able to free up 1 day or 2 days or possibly even 3 days a week to have more times to work in it? If you're interested in being able to understand what the business freedom assessment looks like, the link to do so will be in the show notes today. And it's a free assessment. It takes about 5 or 6 minutes to complete, and we'll send you a completely tailored and bespoke report free of charge to be able to demonstrate your freedom score and some suggestions on how to be able to unlock that prison cell and allow yourself a little bit more access to start working on it rather than in it. So my question as we close today is, how much of a bottleneck are you in your business? How much of the inability to scale is still resting on your shoulders because you haven't yet let go of the things that have led you to where you are today? It all comes by making a simple decision. How much longer are you going to put it off? God bless, take care. I'll see you again next week. Thanks for tuning in to the Accidental Business Owner podcast with me, Jay Allen. If today's episode sparked a thought, challenged your thinking, or gave you a new tool to grow smarter, share it, rate it, and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss a moment of transformation. God bless, take care, and I'll see you again next week.